I'd like to welcome the panelists without any delay into the topic of our discussion today, that is pedagogy-based creative writing. That is anything written that is connected with teaching and learning. In this panel today, we will discuss about the pedagogical possibilities of creative writing, the writing that is, as I said, related to any activities, any kind of encouragement, any kind of contribution in teaching writing. Let me start by introducing the scholars in this panel today. We are happy to have Professor Vishnu Singh Rai. Dr. Rai is a retired professor of English language education after teaching over 30 years at Dewan University. He is a well-known linguist, an ELT practitioner, and a creative writer himself. In the later 90s, as the national consultant, Professor Rai helped Ministry of Education, Nepal, to develop new curricula, textbooks, and teacher training materials for the school education, which are, with minor changes though, still practiced in Nepal. Dr. Rai has published over 24 books and traveled abroad to run workshops on ELT and creative writing. His interests are eco-approach to language teaching and creative writing. Welcome, Dr. Rai, to this session.
Thank you.
Our next scholar here in this forum is Associate Professor Motikala Subba Dewan. NELTA President Motikala Dewan is an advocate and she, at the Supreme Court of Nepal. She is an Associate Professor of English at Ratnarajya Lakshmi Campus, Dewan University. She is a PhD scholar, Vice President of Elamba Research Foundation, member of Asian Creative Writing Group, professional translator, trainer, teacher, educator, writer, and syllabus designer. She is a dynamic leader. She has presented papers at many national and international conferences, published various books and research articles in English and legal kind of law related areas in different journals and magazines. Welcome, Madam Motikala, ma'am. Welcome to this session. We have our third and very international another expert, Professor Kirck Branch. Kirck is the chair of the English department at Montana State University and director of the Yellowstone Writing Project. Yellowstone Writing Project. It is a professional development program for K-12 teachers. Kirck taught for a year in Central Java as a Fulbright senior scholar and has served as U.S. State Department English language specialist in Nepal also and Kazan, Russia. He is the author of one book and several articles on adult literacy, education, and literacy policy. Professor Branch has taught at an adult literacy center, a vocational school, a county jail on an Indian reservation, and 4 universities. Welcome, Professor Branch, and
thank you.
Welcome everybody. And dear participants, I welcome all the participants. To start the discussion, I would like to ask Professor Rai to share your insights in brief on the topic that pedagogy-based creative writing. Please, over to you, Dr. Rai.
Thank you. Well, I think creative writing is everything. The topic is pedagogy-based creative writing. So this is not only for poets and novelists as such,
yep,
but the teachers, and particularly English language teachers. And I believe that creative writing not only benefit the students, but also the teachers. It helps not only the students to develop their English language competencies, but also help the English language teachers to develop their own English language competencies.
Yes.
As a creative writer myself, and I have worked in many countries with many teachers, and all of them agree that creative writing is probably the best way to bring fresh air in the classroom, to cultivate creativity among students and teachers, and teach the English language with fun. So that is what I believe in short.
Let me move to Professor Branch with the same question. Can you share your insights about this topic?
Yes, but before I do, I want to thank you for this honor to be invited to this conference. I attended the NELTA conference in 2014 in Kirck. It was a wonderful conference, and it's an honor to be on this panel with two of my friends from that visit to Nepal. When I was in Nepal for a month, working with teachers in Kathmandu and Burgunj and Kawasati, I met the most amazing people, teachers and professors and students, and I was hosted with such generosity and kindness. And I'll never forget it, and I will never forget how hard and dedicated the teachers I met were, and the work they did. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity to reconnect with two of my friends from that visit and with the teachers in Nepal. Thank you for this opportunity. I second a lot of what Professor Rai said. Especially the fun part. Writing, there's something about bringing creative writing into the classroom that opens a lot of doors for students and teachers, and that allows students to do things in language that we often don't have a chance to do in our English language classrooms. There's a sense of play. There's a turn away from a fear of being correct or making mistakes all the time in writing. There's a built-in audience of other writers who want to hear and enjoy the writing that other students are doing. So the writing allows students, the more you write, we know the more you write, the more your language improves. And we know that students appreciate the audience and having a voice and having a chance to be heard by other students and by their teachers in an honest and creative way. So those are my brief comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes. And Motikala, please.
Thank you very much, Kasiji. I would like to thank, once again to Ramji Hamal, the president of Sudur Paschim Pradesh, and all the executive members of Sudur Paschim Pradesh, and all the branch chairs and NELTA members, and my team, Sarita ji, Ashok ji, and DNG, all of you. So your question is very, very significant, Kasiji. Actually, how do you define pedagogy-based creative writing in the context of Nepal or anywhere? So first, I would like to talk about what is pedagogy actually. Everybody is confused and talking about that pedagogy like that. So actually, in my point of view, pedagogy is an approach or theory or kind of the principles or methods or any kinds of activities of educating or instructing learners that help to impart knowledge or skill to them in creative writing. You know that. And when we talk about the pedagogy-based creative writing, and it is not only limited to one kind of writing or activity, it explores the challenges and affordances, use of variety of approaches and theories. It analyzes the various types of writing elements, disciplines, identifies different genres, and examines the theoretical models of writing with fun, not with the kind of overloaded, with the kind of burden kind of thing, okay? So I would like to add only one line here about the Dr. Catherine Noske. She said that this pedagogy-based creative writing actually encourages the learners to an instinctive kind of creative responses, such as in multiplicative engagement with the material and understanding of the importance of creative effect. okay? When you ask your students to choose a color, it depends on the kind of a level. And okay, you create a list of all those things you associate with the color, okay, depending on the level. So from the grade, I think 5, 6, 7 students will choose the kind of associated words with the color. If they choose the color blue, they will use the other words like, okay, blue color, oh, sky is blue, eye is blue, and world is blue. Also jeans are blue. And then also blueberry is blue. So in this way, when you ask them to list those words related with that color, and you also ask them to, okay, now list down according to the basis of their syllable, okay? You can teach grammar and syllable through creative writing. This is pedagogy. And also ask them to, okay, now you can make a bit of those, choosing those syllable, okay, words. And they could make that, oh, blue is sky, blue eyes, first syllable, no? And blue flame, blue well, that's the first syllable. What of the second syllable? Okay, blue water, blue flower, ocean, blue curtain. Okay,
Wow.
in this way, you can create, okay, kinds of a fun environment, even in the classroom. Also, you can tease, okay, kind of a lesson, ELT lessons, or any kinds of related things with the, this is called the pedagogy, okay, based on creative writing. Thank you.
Look, I am a teacher and I may not be the poet, but I have written some lines about it. How do you think? And these are the very lines I would like to share with you. Some teachers may begin to weaken with age, yet with love and accommodation, they continue to give their life and the benefit of their education for the success of others. They keep the knowledge relevant and alive. Flames thereby become the eternal signs of recognition, the unique attribute and reflection of several luminescent lives, one connecting with another, the mutual support. That's what I wrote about teachers like Vishnu sir. Thank you very much for bringing this kind of encouraging. We are all teachers. We can also become writers and poets, like unseen, but we can. Thank you, Professor Branch. Yes, creative writing opens doors, many doors actually, to teachers as well as students, everybody, and that kills the fear. And it's a kind of very playful way that if we bring creative writing in classroom, definitely that will add fun in learning. I would like Professor Branch to share your brief remarks on research and creative writing in, well, you have traveled a lot, so local as well as international context. So I'd like you to focus on more on international context so that I can talk about the local context with other scholars. And over to you, Professor Branch.
So I will add to the previous question that one thing I think we've all experienced, if the people who participated in the Asia Creative Writing Project, is the sense of community and friendship that shared writing brings to a group very quickly. It creates a real connection with people, a connection that I still feel 6 years later from that conference as I sit here.
Yeah.
In terms of research, we know that if students are writing daily and often, they become better writers. That's independent of whether their writing is read all the time by professors or by their teachers, which is to say that you students should be writing more than you can read their writing. You don't have to read everything students write. And if you think you have to read everything students write, you won't have them writing enough. So that's one thing. We know the writing, the regular writing makes students better writers. We know that a focus on correctness and grammatical correctness and if that's your major focus all the time, we know that it's a detriment to learners. So writers need a chance to just write and have their writing heard by other audiences and other students without being scared of being corrected or having their writing fixed all the time. So that focus on correctness can be a distraction for students and can be an impediment to learning. Any of us who have learned a language know we have to have room to make a lot of mistakes as we're learning. We know, so the research tells us that students like to write for audiences. They like to have audiences besides their teachers, especially audiences of fellow students. and to share their writing, and that engagement of shared writing with other students and other audiences creates a real sense of community that is a very important value in a classroom. So those are some of the highlights of the research that I would like to bring.
Okay, lovely. The connection and confidence. Yes, sure, definitely. Thank you, Professor Branch, for this insight. And now let me move to Motikala, ma'am. Would you share your brief remarks on research and creative writing? Yes, over to you, Moti, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Kasiji. So I go with the Professor Kirck. This is connections and connectivity with everyone. No, creative writing actually a platform to explore and share your knowledge and learnings with the academic world. It supports you to do in the research work in extensive way also, such as to think about topics and to go into the day to analyze the subject matter, no, from different perspectives. And also, if you choose the research topic, for example, on a novel, Never Let Me Go, and to look for approach or perspectives, it will help you to visit the vast history of feminism, time and period, and elements all related to feminism and language of that time, writers' background, contents, and other things. A low boundary for the creative writers. They can use their creativity in research also. They can create or push their creativity to any corner of the world. You can take one character and could write your views in some creative writing in the form of haikus or maybe mini saga, short story, haibun, etc. You do the research on that. You get the cultural aroma of different flavors of language and contents, many more locally and internationally. Thank you, Kasiji.
Thank you, ma'am. So over to Vishnu, sir. Professor Rai, would you like to share some of your insights on this second topic, research and creative writing in our local context, please?
Well, I would tell you my experience because I myself did the research on creative writing with my students in TU, and this was also published, a fragmentary report in NELTA journal, and the full research report on a collection of research articles published by Cambridge scholars. And the title was, What Happens When Students Do Creative Writing? Department thought that I was crazy to do such things, but I did with my students. And all the students, they themselves said, and I would like to remind you that these students are the future teacher trainers in TU.
Yes, sure. Yes, sir.
So they said that Nepal or Nepali English teachers need to know this kind of thing. Yeah. And this is very, very good for not only for students, but for us. We have never been involved in such kind of thing. And I can feel their feeling, because you know that once you write in a second language like English or a foreign language, then the sense of achievement that grows in you, that, oh, I can write even in English language, you see. So that is something which boosts up your morale to,
yes,
that you are actually learning the English language. Mm-hmm. So I did that research, and I think that teachers should do research, and students are always ready to support them.
Sure. Wow.
And wherever, I mean, we have groups of creative writing, and whenever we did these sort of things with students and teachers, they always appreciate that. Not only as a formality, which often happens in Nepal, but they are really interested in to do that. But sadly, this side of English language teaching is, always overlooked. I mean, creative writing, using literature in language classroom has always been opposed in Nepal and elsewhere. And the creative writing, what is this, and this sort of questions.
Sure.
But I will tell you with my experience, and there are many in the world who believe and who has this experience, that creative writing makes your pupil creative, and the teachers, their language is always, repressed. I will just tell that the one quote from Alan Malley. Everybody knows Alan Malley in ELT world.
Yes.
And he says that creative writing makes his language afresh. So this is even for the native speaker. What to talk about like us, we don't even know the English language, That's all.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. Rai. Very, very nice. Yes, this is what is the confidence. For example, this is the unconscious heroism that we have, as all teachers we have. The heroism, creative writing lets that expose out. For example, this is not an advertisement, but like sharing my own experience. Like I didn't choose English as the easy. It was easy, or it was of my interest. In the beginning, like 30 years ago, I must be very, very much struggling with this language. Thank you, Professor Rai, for bringing it to the mass, like how we are struggling to move away from the conventional hegemony of like, okay, creative writing cannot be the teaching kind of source. In fact, this could be the major kind of most important source of teaching in the classroom. This energizes both students and teachers. For now, let me move to third kind of point of our discussion. Now, this could be very interesting. Poets, we are teachers, educators, we are kind of ready to go people. So this question goes to Moti ma'am, and to discuss, this topic. Would you like to share some of your own creation that is related with teaching learning, ma'am?
Thank you. Because when we are going to teach any kinds of literature, fiction, or kind of lessons or research methodology, we have to find some of the way to make it a very lively kind of classroom, so students can enjoy. So sometimes we give them a word, okay, try to make from this lesson you got this word, okay, try to explain this. In that way, some people will do, some students and some learners, they really like to create their own kinds of things to describe that word into kind of a poem, sometimes mini saga, sometimes haiku, sometimes limericks. So I just want to share the limerick with you, which I have written in 2013 when I was in Surabaya in creative writing workshop. So it's about a man. Actually, Alan Malley asks us to write about a man. So sometimes we take from the textbook any kind of subject matter or topic or a word. So I started writing because limerick is very difficult to write, and it has a 5 stanza. And also it is always when you want to curse your teacher or curse someone, or with the fun you want to make, okay, kinds of a laugh, kinds of entertain, then you can choose the limerick. And it is always follow the kind of, you say that's rules, okay, A, B, B, A. So I would like to read my limerick. A man with a beautiful girl shouting loudly at guard in a mall, because A, girl and mall. And in anger, he threw his hat in the air without thinking of his artificial hair, B, okay, hair, air. And wig came out showing his shiny bald. That is again A. So limerick for the kinds of satire or kind of fun. You can make a humorous kind of remarks. So always follow the A, B, B, A. So this is one creative idea I like. And also we don't have much time. I would like to only share my virtual, okay, kind of haikus. And haikus, everyone knows the haikus. And haikus also has to follow some kinds of rules and kind of a syllabic kind of words. So haiku is always with the 3 stanzas, and always the first kind of a sentence or stanza should be with the 5-syllable words, and second will be 7, and third will be 5. It's not much easy. We can put the words with a 5, 7, 5. It doesn't work. It has the link, and there is a continuation between the kind of a meaning also. So I would just like to read my small haikus. So just I created during the lockdown. News flashed on TV. Anchor's harsh voice sore my ears. Lockdown has begun. If you do a second sentence, then your connection with the first and the last stanza should be related. News flashed on the TV. Lockdown has begun. So there should be meaningful continuations and relation, even in a haiku. It's very difficult to write haiku. So another haiku goes like this. From ice wall, transformed into quarantine, became a prison. And the last one is, virtual thing spreading like infection might swallow the world. So these are the 3 haikus I just created in the lockdown.
Yes.
I don't want to take much time. There are many more, but to provide
well,
opportunity
that's all right.
to
We'll love to. I think we'll arrange a day to discuss about our creative writing one day later. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I would like to share one very, very patriotic kind of poem. Forced us to do this kind of writing when I was in Salatiga, Indonesia, and at that time, and it was patriotic. And he just asked to observe the things outside when we went in the trip outside, and I saw the house with a flag, very beautiful flag of that country, and it was, you feel with pride somehow. And even Indonesian people, they said, wow, this is a kind of a place where we always remember. So I just created that, looking at the flag and house that the museum, okay? And this is a poem, okay? 1945, this is a kind of a title. 1945, a new chapter was introduced in the history of Indonesia, the story of blood and struggle, the tale of courage and bravery. Wow. And another second stanza. In 1945, Surabaya represented historic battle that brought a strategic victory for the whole Indonesia, costing the lives of thousands innocent. In 1945, the journey of freedom started by the determined youths to free the country from the colonial power. In 1945, number of shots were heard in the air. Several bodies fell down on earth, but both Dutch and Indonesian in the night of the great battle. In 1945, Indonesian youths climbed the flagpole on the top of the building, ripped the blue strip off the Dutch flag, restored their independence. I salute those heroes who lost their lives. I salute the red and white flag hoisted up in the air. I salute the symbol of pride and unbeatable spirit. I salute 1945, witnessing the glorious past. Thank you. This is dedicated to Indonesian people.
Many of us never had even thought of madam's this part. We might think like, oh, how come Motikala ma'am gets time to write poems? She doesn't need time to write poems. She finds fun in writing poetry. While she's taking rest, moving on, because time constant is here. I know I'm mindful to that. May I request Professor Branch to share your insights, your kind of creativity, your kind of writings on that, your experience in it, please.
Sure. I didn't bring some of my poetry to read. I wish I would have now. I so enjoyed hearing those poems. One thing I would say that it's not a creation of mine, but it's one of the values of the Yellowstone Writing Project that I run, the professional development program here in Montana. That teachers of writing have to be writers themselves. If you're going to be a teacher of writing, you should be writing, because if you're, and I know that I know that that means that your students should see you writing when they're writing. You should be sharing your writing with them. You should be understanding that they should be understanding that you're dealing with some of the same questions that they're dealing with. You should know what it feels, the anxiety that you can have sometimes when you share your writing, the vulnerability that comes with with offering your writing to an audience. Teachers should understand that, and teachers should be so. If you're not a writer, it's very hard to teach writing because you don't understand those experiences, and you need to keep that writing going as a teacher to share it with your students.
Sure.
The other thing I would say is that students really benefit from seeing and reading each other's writing on a regular basis. So I am definitely want my students to read each other's poetry, read each other's stories, read each other's writing, and offer feedback that's not about that's really about what they liked, what confused them, but not about what was wrong with it or what has to be fixed, but a feedback that's about enjoying the pieces and that is about offering real engagement with other writers. That the more opportunity students have to do that with each other, the richer that writing will form in a classroom. And I guess the third value that I would say we have in the Yellowstone Writing Project is that the teachers of writing are the experts that need to be, and teachers really need to be speaking up and teaching other teachers how to do this. That the job of teachers isn't only to do well by their students, but it's to do well by their profession. I know that NELTA teachers are doing this because I've seen them do it. But it's a real value that teachers are professional, also involved in professional development and helping form the future of the school policy and curriculum.
Lovely. Yes. Thank you, Professor Branch. Yes, your as you said, you don't have poems today, so, and you said that's fine. Yes, and your expression, your sharing of your ideas was very poetic. I was teaching among school children by W.B. Yeats, and these are the lines. Just one stanza I'd like to read. After teaching that poem, I wrote this: in praise of learning, our students shall sing to nature and for culture, for the values of love and learning when they raise their voices towards knowledge. These voices will extend through the ravines of darkness while learners like musicians look on in wonder. This melody will echo through the crags, even in the wilderness, and all learners will lift their heads and pay attention for the joy when they find that learning can also lie in the sound of their own voices. That's what I wrote years ago. And you see, we can I'm sharing this because we all can write. Thank you, Professor Branch, for giving us more confidence in that. Now I'd like to move to Rai, sir. Professor Rai, would you like to share your experience, your own creations about pedagogy, on pedagogy, or about teaching, learning things, or your experience in that, please? Thank you.
Well, Kashi sir, as in Hindi it is said, आपने भीड़ के छत्ते को छू दिया है. You have poked the beehive, you know, as you have invited the panelists to recite their poems. I am a poem and now I can take 2 hours because but no, please. You asked me to share my opinion on
very few.
I would also like to share maybe a couplet. Yeah. Let me share my first. All of you know Ghazal, and now Ghazal is being written in the English language. I have written some Ghazals, and I would like to share you some shares of my Ghazals in the English language. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Kirk, you have to find out what a Ghazal is. I would only say that Ghazal is in form of couplets, but they are not necessarily bounded by the same theme. Each couplets might have different themes. So that's the specialty of Ghazals. There are many other things, but you could find yourself. So here, some of my shares of the ghazals. Couplets are called shares in ghazal. There is no any weapon of death that I fear. There is no any weapons of death that I fear. It's the deadly smile of yours that I fear. Moti, it's the deadly smile of yours that I fear. I don't fear bribe and corruption in this country. I don't fear bribe and corruption in this country. It's the painful honesty that I fear.
Wow.
It's the painful honesty that I fear.
Wow.
I don't fear to fight any formidable enemy. I don't fear to fight any formidable enemy. It's the fighting with friends that I fear. It's the fighting with friends that I fear. I don't fear to teach reading, writing, and so forth. I don't fear to teach reading, writing, and so forth. It's the pronunciation to teach that I fear. And the last one, it's the pronunciation. It's the pronunciation that I fear. I always fear the pronunciation, you know.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Rai. Yes, so lovely. You know, like, don't fear the common things. You fear the uncommon things. Wow. Fighting.
Well, I am
Yes.
myself a poet, and I have actually my poems are being taught in Nepal and in abroad in some countries.
Yes. Lovely.
And I
Unacknowledged.
Thank you.
Yes.
I wanted your
Unacknowledged hero. Thank you, sir. So fighting with the friends that you fear, not the enemy, and fearing the painful dishonesty, kind of painful honesty. I mean, honesty. You fear of those people. You worry about those people who are honest, not the corrupts. Wow. You hit the point. Thank you, sir. Wow. Coming very interestingly, we have been moving to the final kind of topic of today's discussion. I have been noting down some representative questions also. Meantime, I'd like to thank you all three scholars for helping us to come to this point. Now, I would like you to share some of your take-home ideas in points for the participating teachers today, how we as teachers can also compose our writing that supports pedagogy. Some of the ideas we have already got from the discussions earlier, but still in a couple of points, would you like to share, would you like to suggest the all teachers how we can also compose our writing that supports pedagogy? So I would like to start from Professor Branch, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you. Just because I did find a poem that I wrote in the Bear Goons workshop.
Lovely. Yes.
So I will share that with you. I shared it there at the conference as well. This poem is called My Language. And it goes like this. Whose language is this? English. Can I call it mine? This language of my childhood stories, my mother's soothing, my father's rebukes, my brother's tauntings, my teacher's lessons, my lover's caresses. Yes, it is my language. Does that mean I own it? Do you own the water you hold in your hands? Do you own the air you breathe into your lungs? Do you own the spirit that animates your soul? My language is alive. It does not let me own it. It does not let me define it. It does not let me call it proper or corrupt. My language is the language of the Jamaican Rastafarian, the Singapore shopkeeper, the Nigerian poet. My language is the language of the Nepali student, the Javanese tour guide, the Mexican policeman. My language is our language. My language is your language. It doesn't live in a museum. It lives in our mouths. The language someone owns is never the language people speak.
Wow, the language that serves the humanity. Thank you. That has to serve the humanity. And that is multicultural. That incorporates all corners of the world. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you know, I think the piece, I've said this already tonight, or it's tonight here. Sorry, this morning I've said this already.
We understand it. Yeah.
Yes, I've said it already, but I think that the real one of the most amazing things that happens in every writing workshop that I have with teachers and in classrooms that I have with students is to watch the energy and dynamics in a room change as students share their writing with one another. And we learn so much about each other so quickly in ways that really form essential connection in a classroom that allows us to do so many other things as teachers. That really gives us a rich community in a classroom, and a much deeper sense of who's there in the room with us. So for teachers, it's one of the things that this writing does for you as teachers is you continue to learn so much more about who your students are, and they learn about who you are in very important ways. And I think it makes us better teachers when we hear our students writing, and it makes us better writers. And this is a great connection. And I recommend it not only to share your writing with other teachers, or other students rather, but to find other teachers who you can share your writing with, who can give you feedback in some of the ways that the Asia Creative Writing Group has done, and in the workshops where I've participated. So I agree with my fellow panelists that creative writing really should be the center of a lot of our language education, and that's not just in second language. That's in my own classrooms with my students here too. That creative writing and regular shared writing really forms the basis of a very strong language education.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Yes. Writing, our writing. Let's ask teachers writing also. Let's ask to continue to learn and therefore to write. Thank you. So can we move on? May I request Raisa to share some of your take-home message to give us to the participating teachers, like how they can also follow you in this path of creativity as teachers. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
I would say that our teachers, that at least they should try. I mean, there are always this fear of unknown. So our teachers, first thing, they don't know how to do creative writing, how to use creative writing in the classroom. And the second thing, that they are very comfortable with the traditional ways of teaching. So they don't want to go into the unknown lands. But I would say that please try creative writing in your classroom. It's worth trying, and you will find that not only your students will enjoy, you yourself will enjoy the process.
Yes.
You know, writing, because it's always fun. It's always playing with language, and at the same time learning language. For example, as Moti was saying, haiku or mini saga, if you try them, because you have this constraint to write a poem in 17 syllables, so you have to find the words and appropriate words and things, so you will go on playing with words. And the same with mini sagas, because you have to write a story in 50 words. So you play with words, how to, how to express what you want to say within 50 words. So you would try every possible sentences and words and so on. And it's always better that if you ask your students to do in pairs, because they then will say that's what I did in my research. What happens when students do creative writing, and I gave them haiku and acrostics and one more poem which we call sensual poems.
Thank you, sir.
I gave them time, and then I recorded what they do. I asked them to, to talk so that they can write better poems. And the whole things I recorded. And you will be surprised to know how much language is generated in their discussion when they are trying to write a poem collectively or in pairs.
Lovely.
So it's always very rewarding.
Yes, yes. And this is what is the summary, you see, pedagogy in language classroom, you see. So you keep trying, you know the basics, that's what Raisa said, know the basics, and try the unknown, then keep trying. And that's where we can engage, involve the students, and that is pedagogy. And after that, we have the creative writing along with the students and ourselves. Thank you, sir, for this great insight. Yes.
Only one thing I would like to add, that
yes, sir.
If they need any help, I'm an NELTA president is there.
Yeah.
So NELTA can always help them, how to do these things.
Yes.
I mean, 1 day or 2 hour sessions or whatever.
Wow. Thank you, sir. We'll definitely, yes, we'll make a note and we'll find another Ramji Hamal sir, or we will ask Ramji Hamal sir to arrange this. All right. Moving ahead and to the president.
Okay, thank you, Kasiji. For the last, your questions about can teacher, compose a writing that supports pedagogy. So I think pedagogy is deeply important for creative writing, for the teachers or students, for the professional development. Without pedagogy, maybe the writing doesn't have any kind of value, or maybe the status, something like that. So pedagogy of creative writing certainly helps learners, learning skills in listening, speaking, reading, viewing, and writing. And also it builds capacity to create text for a range of, for the purposes. There are different purposes of writing. So it helps to improve imaginative power and to see the text from the different angles, and also make them to understand and appreciate the different uses of language written by or used by the writers or authors. Even it engages learners to borrow the ideas from established critical approaches, composition study, rhetoric or critical literacy, and writing-centered theory. There are so many approaches, methods you can get through the pedagogy to creative writing. And it helps you to increase your vocabulary, provides ample resources for your creative writing to help to develop the social and psychological development of learners also. How? We don't have much time, so you just explore it, and creative writing can be relevant not only to those on a path to becoming a literary writers, but to even other learners, student or individual as well. So pedagogy is a matter of access. It determines which students receive the benefits of an education through creative writing. That's why pedagogy and the creative writing, both are interdependent. You cannot separate them. Thank you, Kasiji.
Wow. Lovely. Wow. What an insightful kind of moment we had all together. Now, we are heading to the end and we'll take some questions. And thank you, ma'am. Yes, as you said, even our word can become, we can take the images and we can always create in creative writing in the classroom. So I think, let me share one stanza so simple I wrote like years ago. Now we are having like language, English language, local language, all that. So this is a poem that about my own experience about my classroom. After the classroom teaching, I taught in high school years ago. And after coming out from that classroom, I wrote this: all our students speak in English. That was kind of the slogan we used to claim. And I wrote this: Dear students, do you really like to speak in English, as you are made to call matcha a fish? All good schools claim their child friendliness. Did anyone ever ask you whether you wanted to play or read? Distinction, first or second, is that only what you want? Or do schools have to use this way to claim a grant? Pupils, you are so young and present. Study, yes, but do you need to go that far? Shouldn't you be allowed to enjoy life? You see, learning is also possible with a lot of joys. Looking at your burdened with a bag full of books, I can't help but think how impractical it looks. Oh dear, how long can you continue yourself in these unfortunate pens? And why can't you understand a matcha as a matcha instead of calling it a fish? And a question. I wrote it years ago, my friends. So we have the contents, like teachers have the content, like our panelists all agreed today that we are the people, we are the source of inspiration to others. So why don't we try creating ourselves? Yes, thank you. Now we will move to take questions, and I have some representative questions. Like the question is that were typed, and maybe my other colleagues also have helped to get some questions from the chat box, because I didn't have that much time to look all the chat box messages. This is Pramanand Karn sir had asked, can we also link creative writing with narrative, argumentative, descriptive?
Thank you, Parmanandji. Very nice questions. Yes, creative writing is already always related with narrative or storytelling, or writing a poem, or kind of a mini saga. So when you're writing a story, because the story should be always in narrative forms, and it is a kind of a description that tells us what is happening. So narrative kinds of form is also related with the story, and also story means it's also another creative writing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Maybe Professor Branch, so would you like to share a little bit of your insight in this, please?
Yes, one thing I will say as a college professor, and I tell high school teachers this all the time, if I have students arriving at the university who have written a lot on a regular basis, we're going to be fine. Which is to say that if I'm not so worried about whether they've been trained well in particular genre of academic writing before they arrive at the university. If they have done a lot of writing, if they're comfortable writing, then they're going to be able to learn those genres when they need to learn them. And so I see the linkage. The linkage happens when students start to understand academic writing as having the same kinds of value and energy and meaning for them as the creative writing that you're doing. And that means you're giving them real topics to write about, and real issues to research, and and things that matter to them to read and discuss. So the linkage is there in part because students, the more fluid they are as writers, the easier it will be to learn and teach them creative writing. And the more they're engaged with the things that they're writing about, the academic or creative, the better writers they're going to be. So I think some of the linkages in terms of making real audiences for the work, whether it's academic or creative, and making it meaningful for students. But the real value is just a lot of writing is going to make students capable of changing genres more easily.
There's one question, this would be good for Ricer. You will have two questions to enjoy Ricer now. One is Tirtharaj Nirola sir asked, is not creative writing likely to distract students from standard writing they are taught? I mean, like standard, like exam-based kind of thing, or whatever. Creative writing, is it not possible to distract from the mainstream? That's one question. And another question is Dharmendra Bhattarai sir's question. He asks, what can be the best strategy to teach creative writing in primary schools? So 2 questions, maybe I would like to request Raisa for this, please.
Thank you. The second question, I would start with the last one. The second question, how can we do this in primary schools? This is the notion, the wrong notion that literature is only for the high graders. Literature can only be taught in high grades, in high schools or maybe in colleges and so on, particularly a second or a foreign language. This is a very wrong notion. Even in a primary level, you can teach poems. The important thing is that you have to select poems or literary works according to their level. That's one thing. The other thing is that also that a literary piece or a poem can be taught in several different levels. So the same poem, for example, Tiger, can be taught in primary level, in secondary, and we know that also at university level it's being taught, because the poems have. And related question with the related answer with the second question is that, well, we are not teaching creative writing. We are using creative writing to teach English language. That's the difference. Our teacher must take in this difference that when we advocate creative writing, we are not saying that we are going to make your students poets and novelists and playwrights, you know. What we are trying to say is that we will engage them in creative writing that will help them to learn English language. Not only writing, but also reading and listening and all skills.
Yep.
And I agree with what Professor Branch said earlier, that creative writing would also help in your academic writing. And the pertinent question was, is it not a distraction from the preparation of the examination? Well, I'm not in favor of examination and testing, you know. I'm always saying that all these tests should be banned, should be removed.
Yes.
No testing, no pass and fail, nothing. Why should we do that? And we know that many countries are doing. I mean, in Finland, in Singapore, and many countries are coming in from. Why should we penalize our students for 1 or 2 hours test? You know, you cannot test their competencies in 2 hours, and you put pressure on them. If they pass, if they are in first division, they are in pressure to maintain that. If they are fail, they try to do suicide, try to commit suicide. So why should you do that? This is kind of a crime, you know. But so I would say that don't be obsessed with your examination. To my first questioner, we Nepali teachers or teachers are in general, we always think of the examination, not what your students are learning. If you are thinking of examination, well, then we just take all the questions of the back years and let them wrote by heart. Some of the questions will definitely appear. But if you really want your learners to learn the English language as a teacher, then you should think how they can learn better. And creative writing is certainly one of the best ways to learn language with fun, with play. That is all I could say.
Yes, thank you, sir.
I've seen
Yes.
2-3 questions related to me, so I'll just like to answer.
Sure. Yes, please, ma'am.
Because some of the that queries I found in the chat box that some of our friends, they ask about that, why shouldn't we free from that kind of genre hegemony? Why we should always traditional kinds of genres hegemony in our writing or something like that? Another question is, what is the kinds of, we always follow traditional compositions of poetry and something like that, and why we should really, is there any relation with logos, ethos, pathos, kairos, and topos, something like that? So I'll give answer in 1-2 sentences that yes, you could free from genre hegemony in creative writing, but there is something when you are going to create something that shouldn't be come from the empty kinds of vacuum or mind, because we have to follow certain traditional kinds of basis or foundation.
Basics, yeah. Know the basics, yes.
Yes. And you can write in free verse, but if you want to create your own, if you want to free from this genre hegemony of the traditional, then you have to create your own. You have to follow your own track. If it is published and followed by everyone and liked and appreciated, that is another your own kind of, yes, genre hegemony of your creative writing. You could do that. And logos, ethos, pathos, everything comes in this kind of creative writing, because already Reiser and Kirck, Professor Kirck also said that it is all these kinds of logos, ethos, pathos, emotions and sensual kinds of senses are related with in creative writing, because without using or hearing a kind of sound, or without smelling or touching the flower, you cannot write or do creative writing. So all these rhetoric, whatever processes, persuasions are there about this literary from the literature genre, so you can also keep in this creative writing. So I think you can compose poetry without following the kinds of traditional genre. So free verse, you can write anything. So there's a kind of prose or something like that. But this should be accepted by the wide readers or audiences. So you can do anything creative writing, but it has to be some kinds of rules you have to follow, because there is always, you have to maintain the decency of the languages. Thank you, Kasiji.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yes.
Now, please, let's open the floor for the participants, particularly new faces will give priority now.
Sure.
Yes. Let me go for the Ghanshyamji. Ghanshyamji, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. I have a question for Motikala, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, can creative writing be taught in a classroom? Isn't it related to the singing of the heart? I have often I have read a text by Reiser. My heart can create when I can create when my heart longs for singing.
Yes, that's very good questions. You can teach creative writing even when you are teaching a kind of methods or kind of Chomsky's theories or something like that, or fiction or a poem. You could bring those creative writing. Doesn't mean creative writing means always you have to follow the rules and regulations. No, creative writing means just give them a kind of a word or vocabulary or characters. Okay, you describe it, but it depends on the individuals, okay, interpretation and perspectives. So when they bring those kinds of, okay, bring those vocabulary related character or kind of a content, then they will bring those kind of things, and you see the variations of writing, you find that it's really, really creative of their mind. So why not you bring, every time you can bring creative writing in the class, Ghanshyamji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Now the question will be from the Mean Dawadi, sir. What's your question, sir? Please, you can ask.
Thank you, dear sir. My question is, don't you think that the mechanical aspects of academic writing hinder the naturalness and flexible form of creative writing? This is the question for Dr. Branch.
Thank you for that question. I think, so I guess I would ask teachers, I ask teachers in the United States too, to think about the values that are driving them in academic writing and teaching the academic writing. Our students, almost none of our students are ever going to write for an academic journal and need to write prose that will be published in an academic journal. Our students, the value of academic writing is about exploration, research, questioning, and discovery. And there's an excitement in that that's not unlike the excitement that students can have with creative writing. So part of what I would say to that is that if we're trying to train our students as writers to publish in academic journals, we may be teaching the wrong kind of writing. If students are interested in becoming academics, then that's when we need to learn how to write that kind of very formal sort of essay. But those values of discovery and research and learning and questioning and finding information, that's important. Those are skills we want our students to learn, but they don't have to learn them in a very fixed format that looks the same every time and that has all the same structures and formats. So I would say that my answer to you is to sort of challenge the fixed structure of academic writing and rather look at some of the values that are behind that writing. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, now another question will be from, I think, Gunaraj ji. He has requested here also. So Gun sir, very short question, please.
Thank you, Dewan sir. Here we have got great writers and scholars working in the field of English language and literature. We are really embellished with your ideas. But I have one question. I sense a problem in the phrasing of the title itself. To me, when creative writing is preceded by or dominated by pedagogy based, don't you think it risks losing creativity? Teachers or students who were, give a try to it. So my question is, why do we sully creative writing with pedagogy based? Why not we leave creative writing for creative writing, or much softer one say creative writing for language enrichment? So when you talk about creative writing, pedagogy based sounds anti-creative to me. So please, your thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gundaji. This question is really, really relevant. So creative means actually you can write freely. That's true. But we can also link with pedagogy, because when we are going to teach our students, you cannot ask them to write a creative poem or something like that, which are not relevant to your lessons or texts. So pedagogy you cannot separate, because if you are going to teach something, a poetry or poem in class, though they are creating, kind of a poem, but you ask them to use the pedagogy of writing haiku, If you are going to write haiku, you cannot leave the pedagogy, because writing haikus, you have to follow the syllables, 17 syllables word. So this is kind of pedagogy. So it is creative writing is based. I already told you, because if you want to go from this hegemony out from this line to creative writing, then we have to create our own kind of creativity or kind of rules and regulations. For in Nepal also, sometimes we use a word, 3 lines poem. So this is new kind of creation. If it is popular and it will be kinds of accepted by internationally or locally, then it will be one kind of creative writing. But always there is a kind of a rules and you have to follow that. But free verse, you can write anything. Let your students write some prose or maybe the story. So that is also free. But somehow in the story also, you have to mention the characters and elements, plot and something, or just describing something monotonous. That is not creative, because for the creative writing, you need to kinds of explore your imaginations. And if you don't follow the kind of pedagogy base, then it will be very difficult for you. So your question is really, really authentic, and that's true. But still, I think in my point of view, as a teacher in the classroom, if you want to teach creative writing, you have to follow the pedagogy of some extent. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Just a second. Thank you, madam, for your thoughts. I was just thinking, had we phrased our title creative writing for language enrichment, then creative writing would have got much fresher air in our discussion. That I was thinking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gundaji.
So next question from the Samjana Ariel. Samjana ji, I'm unmuting you. Please, you can ask your question to Professor Branch.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, I am from a government school. I teach in secondary level.
Right.
While teaching for the academic writing or creative writing, I feel very difficult to the students. They even can't write a few sentences in the copy. So at that moment, what shall I do? What sort of strategy I should apply to them to encourage and motivate them to write?
So I can say that this is a very common challenge, and it's not only for second language learners, also first language, for people who are writing in their first language also struggle with getting those words down on paper and doing that in a classroom. I think what it takes for teachers is repetition and patience, so that students learn, they become comfortable with the process. They understand that you're not testing them every time you're asking them to write. I think students are very nervous that they're being tested all the time, and that when they write something, you're going to see it and then correct them. I had to work very hard with my students in Indonesia to not expect me to fix everything they wrote, and correct it and show them all the mistakes that they made every time they wrote something. And when they could learn that that's not what I'm going to do, then they're more comfortable writing and sharing that writing. But it takes time and patience. And I think that sometimes as teachers, we get a little bit frightened about our students' lack of engagement. And if something doesn't work right away, we stop doing it. So my recommendation in this situation is to keep doing it, and keep celebrating the writing that your students are doing, and keep celebrating the sharing that they're doing, and they will start to gain more comfort with that and less fear about the words they're putting down.
This is my finding, because this is my PhD finding, number one of transformative learning to teach creative writing or writing in high school, is that link learning with lives. Samjana ma'am, you can always ask the students to start from the easy. So try to kill that fear of blank page. Ask them to write about the easy thing, like what did they eat, ask them to write about their grandmother, or interview them, or talk about their breakfast or lunch, whatever, or their siblings, all that. We should start from what they feel easy. So start with the easy things.
Thank you, Dr. Kasiraj Pandey sir, for wonderful moderation here. And I would like to thank Professor Branch, our NELTA President Motikala Subba ma'am, and Professor Vishnu sir for being with us. And it's a issue that where the very few people, they want but they can't. This is the thing, they want to do but they can't do it. It's not it's not a thing that we just get it in wild goose chase away. We cannot do it. So thank you so much for being with us, and I would like to thank Professor Branch for being with us, and you accepted our invitation so quickly that I felt so happy. Your humbleness towards the NELTA in our program has really heightened the level of our province as well, and whole NELTA. So
I would like to thank you for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here, and I had such a wonderful experience working with NELTA and teachers in Nepal that it's just a real pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you. I look forward for another opportunity to have a conversation like this in person with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So in the same way, I would like to thank Motikala Subba ma'am. I have heard, but the first time, her creativity, I'm able to, insight in myself. Thank you so much, ma'am. That's why I call you dynamic lady. So it is the proof. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to all. Thank you.